Thanks, Steve, and hello, everybody. The track is open for NASCAR Sprint Cup practice at Texas. 37 of the 46 entrants are in line and ready to go. The temperature might break 70 degrees today. It's going to get cooler as the weekend goes on, and thunderstorms are in the forecast. You see it's a little breezy out there. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip, trying to answer in this next hour and a half two big questions. One, what will happen with the new rear spoiler on these cars at Texas? And two, who's in what car? There's been a lot of shuffling around for this week and one big driver change for the future. First things first, the rear spoiler.
Yeah, you know what? This is one of those racetracks where you let them ponies run, boys, because what you got under the hood is a lot more important than what you got on the trunk lid back there. That, I think, will come into play in the race. I'm not sure we'll see a whole lot today. I think we're going to see fast speeds, though, because they got a pretty grippy little tire here, and this joint's always produced pretty high speeds, probably 190+ mile-an-hour qualifying laps.
Yeah, I was going to say, we do have the big variable. And I think even though we raced the rear spoiler the past two races, this is the one that everyone had circled because simply it's one of the fastest tracks we go to. But I think another big variable, I think it's the reason we had over 20 cars lined up 15 minutes even before practice started, is like Darrell mentioned, Goodyear has brought a totally different tire package here, something we've never raced here, something we've not run anywhere so far in 2010. So I think those two big variables, and as you saw in the weather, possible rain out there, that's the reason everyone was anxious to get on the track quickly.
All right, we've talked spoilers and tires. We'll deal with the driver changes in a minute. First, down to Dick Berggren in the 48 garage.
Well, I'm in the 48 garage because Jimmy Johnson is leading the points, and this is Texas, and like every other racetrack we go to, Jimmy Johnson has a good track record here. He won in November of 2007, and the last two spring races, he has finished in the second spot. Crew Chief Chad Knaus told me the way they're going to play their cards in this practice session is just try to go fast. The game plan, run a whole bunch of laps in race trim and then switch over to qualifying trim. Let's go to Matt Yoakum.
Dick, 1 year ago this weekend, Jeff Gordon added something to his racing resume he'd never added before in his storied racing career, a trip to the Texas Motor Speedway victory lane. They come back, though, with a completely different tire package like Larry Mack mentioned. In fact, between the tire and the concerns for weather tomorrow, crew chief Steve Letarte has already called an audible. They're going to add about 30 more minutes to their race trim time to try to dial in their race setup than they normally would have on a Friday, just not knowing what weather will be like on Saturday, which could cut short the practice time. So that's their early agenda here in this first practice.
And see, that's totally different than the philosophy of normally the 24 and the 48. Normally on Friday, they focus on one thing and one thing only, making practice qualifying runs. I think certainly the forecast for tomorrow has a little something to do with it, but I think it's more so the tire, the spoiler, all the unknowns coming here is the reason they've jumped out there in race trim.
I think it was the last race here, quite honestly. He does not want to qualify poorly here. Get back there, you know, 10th, 12th position on the racetrack. You saw what happened to him here last fall. He got in an early wreck. I think what they're really wanting to accomplish is to start as close to the front, if not on the pole, as they possibly can. Plus all the other factors as well, but I think that's also underlying in their thought process.
Agreed. Now, we're back to the standard format for races, which is 1.5 hours of practice, qualifying this afternoon, and then final practice will be tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think any of the teams disagree that having a two-day show is a great thing for your personal life, but this is the normal schedule. This is the routine. Worry about one thing first, qualifying, then worry about the race starting tomorrow.
So qualifying will be this afternoon. Of course, weather permitting, thunderstorms in the forecast and a very low overcast off to the east and south here. As you look at David Rudiman, who is second to Clint Boyer on the speed chart.
Rudiman, he likes this joint. He gets around here good.
I am so excited to get to Talladega next week because I love that place, a lot of things, but going back to that 00 car, the biggest thing I'm excited about
good grief.
is the paint scheme they're going to race there next week.
You know what I'm excited about? I'll be excited about that race getting over.
What? All right, Larry. What? Is he going to love?
No, it is a tribute to the 2009 BCS championship football team, the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Can we just get on to look? Here's the 18. The 18
here's the
car.
18.
Yeah, green car.
Red car.
And I hope you don't bring out that stinking hat.
Grind, grind, grind.
Barry Landis, our producer, was just telling me that they will lose their opening game to San Jose State. I don't think so. Even though his brother is the coach.
There's our point standing runner-up, Matt Kenseth, logging a few early laps. Back in black this week with the Crown Royal car.
And I'm sure it's no coincidence that our points leader is not too far behind him, taking a look at him, watching him get around the racetrack.
There's a driver looking for a rebound, Tony Stewart. As you heard Steve Burns and Randy Pemberton chatting before they tossed it up here to us. Spoke started out strong in Phoenix, a track where we expected him to do well, but took a big swing at it mid-race, went the other way.
No. You win as a driver, and then it's nice to win as an owner every once in a while. So last Saturday night, he gave up the driving, you know, as a driver, and his car went to victory lane.
Well, that's true. Ryan Newman does drive for Tony Stewart and Gene Haas.
Spread it around, you see.
So I see. So he took one for the team,
yeah, he took
so Ryan could win.
Yeah, he probably, you know, did something special for Ryan.
I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. But it was a very emotional victory lane for both of them. He came over, congratulated Ryan, and that was really pretty cool. It'll be Smoke's 400th career start in NASCAR, and that's after a successful career in open wheel that included all the USAC championships and an IRL championship.
And you see their two-time champion in NASCAR, actually the only driver to win under the two different formats, the old format and now the chase format that came into play starting in 2004.
And the last driver to win a championship not named Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah. Right. Listen, I've been watching Juan Pablo. I think he's getting ready to come in. But like everywhere we go to these mile-and-a-half racetracks, Larry, Mike, he runs the most unorthodox lines around the racetrack of anybody. I mean, unorthodox to us. Probably to him, it's just normal. But he goes in a corner way high into 3, runs the middle, and then drops it down to the bottom. And he'll go in, and he just, like he's looking for a place where the car will make maximum speed for qualifying.
It's interesting with his road race background that he'd try those different lines, because road racing, it's all about corner exit and lining up your entry to get a big corner exit. So maybe that's one of the things he's trying.
It works. I know
it's
that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Dick.
Well, Mark Martin's car is parked in the garage. He's been on the racetrack and has told the crew that he'd like to have the car a little bit looser so it would go a little bit faster. Mark will exit this car after the 2012 season. I talked to his crew chief this morning, Alan Gustafson, and wondered where he was going to go and what he was going to do. Alan said his contract ends at the end of this year and is not sure where he's going or what he's going to do, but he is certainly hopeful of sticking with Hendrick. And why not? He has had enormous success here, winning races with Kyle Busch as his driver, Casey Mears as his driver, and Mark Martin as his driver. I think Alan Gustafson may ask for a pay raise on the new contract.
I tell you, it's one of the brightest minds down in that Sprint Cup Series garage area. He's quiet but effective.
Yeah, and I think Rick Hendrick will be asking for a meeting with Dick Berggren, too.
And Dick alluded to it. Casey Kane will be in the seat of the number 5 beginning 2012. There's much more to that story. We'll have it when we come back. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice from Texas is brought to you by the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com and click on Design It, enter it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is the fastest in practice. Clint Boyer, David Rudiman, Jimmy Johnson, and Kyle Busch are the fast 5. Ryan Newman, last week's winner in Phoenix. 30th right here, but a very emotional win, not just for Tony Stewart, but for Ryan Newman. His first win driving for Tony Stewart and Gene Haas.
You know, it's always comforting as a driver or as an owner to hire a driver to go somewhere, and people would say, why are you doing that? I don't know. You think that's a good idea? That solidifies that, you know, that's a pretty good idea.
And you know what was interesting about the call that they made last week at Phoenix, Mike? Let's take a look at those last few laps first.
Well, here's the restart up against Jeff Gordon. And Gordon's outside, which had been the preferred lane all night.
He spun the tires. He said he momentarily lost, spun the tires, and that just messed him up. And he lost that little bit of extra lead that he would have needed to get down into turn 1. Didn't quite get there in time, and Ryan didn't hesitate, man. He jumped all over that.
And enough cars took 2 tires, as Newman and Gordon did, that the drivers on 4 tires could not get to them in just 2 laps.
Well, that's the point I was going to make, and we ran off the air so quick I wasn't able to make this point last week from Phoenix, but you saw the 39 car line up on the front row, and then you saw Matt Kenseth, the 17 car, on the second row. Those were actually 2 teams that earlier in the race had tested the waters with just 2 right side tires on lap 17.
Okay.
The first caution, and Tony Gibson, the crew chief for that 39 car, and there you see Todd Parrott, who made that call as well, said that they had pretty decent grip then. They knew that late in the night the grip would be even better because the track had gained grip.
Are there any crew chiefs down there anymore that play cards?
I don't think they
know
have
where
cards
you're going.
anymore.
Because back in the day, the best crew chiefs were the best card players. Why? Because they like to gamble.
Exactly.
Well, but also they knew the odds, they had figured all the strategies, and they knew what was likely to happen.
I just cannot get over 20-some race cars pitting with 5 laps to go.
That nobody stayed out.
Nobody.
I mean, I understand.
What is going on?
I understand making a choice, 2 versus 4.
Yeah.
And we heard Kyle Busch's crew chief on the radio the other day saying that when he heard that the 48 was taking 2, that validated his decision to take 2 because that's who they had to beat. Well, and then a whole bunch of other, I mean, take 4.
4, right.
That's who they had to beat, and then a whole bunch of people in front of them took 2. But I can't believe, I'm with you, Darrell, I can't believe that nobody at the tail end of the lead lap, and on that prior caution, we'd had some wave around guys, couldn't just say, man, the best I can do is start in the front with track position and not get any tires at all.
Well, that would probably not be a race winning move, but it would probably buy you better than a 20th place finish.
I would have thought.
Would be the point.
Just wrong.
Denny Hamlin, who was grimacing after the race in Phoenix and had a very stern expression on his face as he went by in the golf cart to get ready for this practice. And yes, we would have liked to talk to Denny last week, but we just simply, we were over time, ran out of time on our Fox telecast. I think, though, the fact that he finished the distance of the race, did not get out of the car, pretty much told the story and validated the position that he was there to run the whole night if possible, and he did.
Yeah, well, it just helps the race team. First of all, you're hurt, and you didn't get hurt driving that race car. You know, it was self-inflicted,
right? And
so you don't want to hurt the race team by something happening to you when you weren't on your job, when it was you're off your watch.
The other point to make was Danny had to meet with his team and his doctors before he was free to talk to us, and by then we were off the air. Texas tonight, Trackside, the ultimate Friday night house party, is in the Lone Star State with Scott Speed and Paul Menard tonight, 6:30 Eastern time, only on Speed.
And you know what, I'm anxious for Paul Menard to come on because we spent some time with him, and he has a goal, and it has to do with all 7 of our continents, and you'll have to tune in tonight to find out what that goal is.
That's right. What does he want to do at least once on every continent?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Scott Speed, I'm still looking for an explanation on that outfit he had on last week on our pre-race show.
Oh, the toga?
Toga. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with Animal House. Unfortunately, usually Toga Party and Animal House are synonymous.
Yeah, I did find out that that was actually not a toga party. it was a Red Bull.
What was it?
Well, then I am sorely disappointed.
What it was,
Tupperware party.
It was a Red Bull chariot race
Eric
at the
Stratton,
University.
Rush chairman. Dan, glad to meet you.
Anyhow, it was a Red Bull chariot
I'm
race.
waving you off. Matt, in the garage.
Well, I'll try to help you out, Mike. And talking about a former pledge class president, Dale Earnhardt Jr., twice he's won poles here at Texas, and currently he's P1 on the board. But remember, different agendas up and down the garage. Some guys are working early on race stuff. The 88 team, they're in qualifying mode right now at this juncture. The car up on jack stands. They're cooling off the water. But Junior says the car from center to exit, very neutral. And he also said, you know what? I feel really good today. I feel like we've had a longer time off than we just had, even though we had the longer week because we had the Saturday night race. So these guys are pumped up, and it shows on the board early on.
Fat, drunk, and stupid, Mike, is no way to go through life, son.
Grade point average 0.0.
Get back, Mike. He's on a roll.
Okay. And so is Mark Martin. He is not the fastest car in this practice, at least not yet. He's 16th on the board.
You know, I was just looking. That's always a good sign for Mark Martin.
That means he's on race setup, most likely. Very comfortable. I like the way it's driving. Now let's make it go fast.
Now, here's the rest of the story. Well, as far as we know, Mark Martin is contracted to drive this car through 2011 for Rick Hendrick, who this week signed Casey Kane as the new driver of the number 5 beginning 2012. Kane has indicated he will leave Richard Petty Motorsports at the end of this season. So where does Casey Kane go for 2011? Well, that remains the so-and-so $1 million question.
The thing about an operation like Hendrick Motorsports, and they have affiliation with Stewart-Haas, they got so many options.
Yes.
I mean, I heard them on a radio conference yesterday. They haven't even started to put this puzzle together yet. They got a lot of pieces thrown out on the table. They don't know where all the pieces are going to go just yet. But as I said, when they put them together, I bet it makes a pretty picture.
Agree. Now, I thought it was interesting to hear that Alan Gustafson's contract with Hendrick Motorsports is up at the end of this year, as I believe is Chad Knaus's contract with Hendrick Motorsports. So there's 2 of the top crew chiefs. There's Alan, 2 of the top crew chiefs in the garage area. I would kind of doubt that they would make it to the free agent market, but in this sport, you never know.
You never know. I don't think anybody would have ever thought Ray Evernham would have left Hendrick Motorsports.
There's a thing called logical deduction. We don't always seem to be able to apply it, but there is. And then you know, sometimes we're Captain Obvious, but then sometimes Captain Obvious can't see
logical deduction.
It's right. And so just if Alan's contract is up at the end of 11, Kenny Francis and Casey Kane here, they have a great relationship. You know, things will start to fall in place, and I bet over the next 6 weeks or so, you'll say, aha, I think I see how it's going to all work out.
There will be an aha moment.
There will.
Yeah.
But I just think so many things led to this. I'm looking right now at the practice chart. Now, he's in race trim, but this 9 car is 39th quickest out of the 45 cars. And I think you just add up the fact that they're not really running that well. They've had 4 finishes of 30th or worse this year. Now, some of them was due to like the wreck at Phoenix last week. But I just don't think they're fast each week. The only racetrack I've really seen them fast aside from Daytona was Atlanta. And then Hendrick Motorsports offers you a program. You know what? You got to do the math.
Yeah, you also, well, do the math is exactly right. How old is Casey Kane? 29 years old, 30? When are you, I've said this over and over again, when are you at your best? In your late 29s or early 30s. And right now, he needs to be with the best possible team he can be with to capitalize on the experience that he now has.
And you get a feeling he'll blend in well over there.
Oh,
you just look at his personality.
I'm just saying, I'm not starting anything.
No, I know, you're just saying, I'm with you.
Another person whose contract I believe is up at the end of this year is Dale Earnhardt Jr. at Hendrick Motorsports.
I ain't even going down that road.
No, but you do have to consider that.
That is a fact. And now let's go to commercial.
I was going to say that was music to my ears right there. Stand by commercial.
Senator
we'll discontinue this story when we come back.
Texas, paced by Dale Earnhardt Jr. And checking back to my notes on that announcement on the Dale Jr. deal was that it was a multi-year contract characterized as 3 or more years, not necessarily a 3-year contract. Matt Yoakum's checked with a ranking official with the team who indicates that this is not contract year for Dale Jr.
So now Rick Hendrick's going to have a meeting with you and Dick Perkins.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Sorry about that.
He's still the quickest. Looks like they have elected maybe to keep this car, at least in the beginning, in qualifying trim. He's only been out twice and run a total of 3 laps.
Now, I saw Greg Biffle do an interesting thing in the early laps of this practice. Scott Speed was out on the track, kind of minding his own business and riding around, and Greg was tucked right up under him for about 4 straight laps, trying to get a taste of how much aero push the car might have in this package. This was probably a good fact-finding session for Greg Biffle. Not sure what it was like for Scott Speed, though.
Well, here's the concern. With this car pokes a big hole in the air anyhow, because it has a very wide, tall greenhouse, the area that's the roof and all. And then when you throw that big rear spoiler on the car, it even pokes a dirtier hole in the air. And when you have that, when you get up behind the car, that you lose more downforce on the nose of your car when you're behind that car. So I think that was the big unknown coming here. Are these cars going to still turn when you get behind the car? Because quite honestly, Mike, adding that rear spoiler over the rear wing put more total downforce in the car, surprisingly more on the front than the rear, even though that's a change at the rear of the car.
And you'll hear much more about this as the weekend goes on. Let's go back to the garage and Matt.
And Mike, going through their normal checklist here on the 48, they're filling it up with some Sunoco race fuel, so that way all their numbers as far as weight goes, the balance of the car is similar when they go back out. But Jimmy says the car is pretty good, especially the left front is up in some cases, but it is snug, especially on older tires. So they are pretty pleased at this juncture with what the feedback they're getting from driver 48.
You know, Larry, one of the things that all this stuff is really technical. You'd think just taking that wing off and putting that spoiler on the back, no big deal. I mean, they both make downforce. They both hold the back of the car down. But one of the things that we were talking about is there's the spoiler. You can see how far it hangs over the quarter panels there. That's making the that's giving the car a lot more downforce. Remember how we had to yaw the cars out with the wing to try to get downforce? Well, that's sort of taking care of that part of it. But the pressure point that they talk about, and that's where the air pressure is the greatest over the race car, has been moved forward. If you could look at the side view of the car and see the roof, let's just say that the center of the car, the pressure point was 6 inches behind the center point of the car. Now that pressure point has been moved 6 inches forward to the center of the car, therefore creating more front downforce as well as rear downforce. So it's a slippery slope when you start trying to explain what that one change. Plus, people are still are not sure how that big fin, that shark fin back there, is creating a lot of side force. And so there's a lot of things that are going on with these cars that doesn't look technical, but a lot of technical things happening.
And you know, Mike, I talked about this Goodyear tire, and Goodyear did a tire test here in mid-January, and this was actually one of the first places that teams at a high-speed racetrack put the rear spoiler on the car. They brought this two-car Kurt Busch, Greg Biffle, Tony Stewart, and Brian Vickers, and they actually did some A/B stuff with the wing to the rear spoiler. The one thing they did not have when they did that tire test, because I don't know that we anticipated it, they did not have that big shark fin that Darrell just talked about on the deck lid, so that was a little bit of a variable. But NASCAR worked very hard, and I think they've done an awesome job, not because of my opinion, but because of what the drivers and crew chiefs are saying, is when they went pretty much from the wing to this spoiler, and then they added longer quarter panels down there by about 4 inches, and then they put that shark fin on the deck lid. It brought the feel of the car closer to what these guys have driven for the last 2.5, 3 years with the wing.
Now, we talked about changes for next year and beyond as we have a look at the 47 of Marcus Ambrose, who is 21st on the board here. There are changes for this week. There are 46 cars entered here, which is about what we had at Phoenix. The two cars that are not here are the number 90 of Raymond Key Motorsports. They have cut back to a partial schedule, trying to concentrate on running well in a few races, then extending their resources to try and run them all. So they're not here. And Tommy Baldwin Racing has cut back to just the 36 car. They have left the number 35 home, and that led to some interesting driver changes. Johnny Sauter was moved by Tommy Baldwin from the 35 into the 36. Baldwin released Mike Bliss, who before he got home his cell phone was ringing from James Finch, who has released Eric Almirola and has put Bliss behind the wheel of the 09. So to fill the field, if you want to look at it that way, the Wood brothers are here with the 21 for Bill Elliott, and Braun Racing is here. They're going to make a few starts with Reed Sorensen in the Cup Series. Here is Michael McDowell, who is the quickest of the go homers right now. 11th fastest. And let's take a look at the entire list of the drivers that will have to qualify on time based on their practice speed right now. There's Bliss now in the 09. You say Bill Elliott, who is a past champion and would have that provisional. Sauter moving to the 36, and Reed Sorensen new this week.
And for the second week in a row, McDowell and Blaney, they have swapped cars, and again, they're trying to build the points for that 55. Row brother Michael next week in Talladega.
Come on, Mikey.
Tonight, Speed takes you inside the life of Bill France Sr., the man that created NASCAR, and whose vision built Daytona and Talladega. Don't miss NASCAR Hall of Fame biography, Bill France, tonight, 9:30 Eastern, only on Speed.
You know, the other question about this rear spoiler, it adds a substantial amount of aero drag, straightaway speed to the car. But I tell you right now, and I think we've got great conditions, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is quickest at a 28.89, pretty much right out of the truck. And we know these guys are not in full-blown qualifying trim. You look back last year, the pole speed in April was 28.34, and in November 28.25. I think when they ramp qualifying up, it won't be a track record, but I think they may run at least as quick as these two qualifying speeds last year.
I think they'll be the 25 mark.
You saw Kevin Harvick fourth quickest on the board.
You forgot to mention that he'll be a free agent at the end of this year.
That's correct.
So there's another piece of the puzzle.
Scott Speed 41st.
Puzzle pieces thrown everywhere.
Tis a puzzlement.
But you know, we were talking on our conference call on Tuesday. 3 out of the last 4 seasons, including this year now already, we've had a major announcement about a driver change very early in the season. You go back to 2007, preparing for 2008. Dale Earnhardt Jr. about Darlington. He didn't make the announcement he was going to Hendrick, but he made the announcement he was leaving Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. Spin it ahead the next year at Chicago, mid-season. Tony Stewart says he's leaving Joe Gibbs Racing, going to Stewart Haas. Pretty quiet last year, but now already we're not even a fourth of the way through 2010. We've had a major announcement that's going to start some dominoes to follow.
Well, it always depends on what's out there. And you know, just like we just said about Kevin, he's a free agent. And there's a few other guys that may be available as well. When you have an opportunity like Casey has to go get involved with Rick Hendrick and Hendrick Motorsports and others, you can't wait, because you'll be standing at the door when everybody else has gone through.
Bobby Labonte carrying the governor along for the ride. Rick Perry, they had a big reception for the governor here last night. Bit of racing synergy. They served wines from Adobe Road Winery, Kevin Buckler's winery. He owns this race team, owns the winery, and Rick Perry running for another term as governor of Texas. Those are the colors Bobby Labonte's carrying. He is one of 4 drivers who have been in every one of the 18 Sprint Cup races held at Texas Motor Speedway.
You know, one thing I like about coming to Texas, there's a lot of reasons I like it, but one reason I like the race, if you think about most of the racetracks we go to, we always say, well, Hendrick Motorsports has dominated this track, or Roush Fenway. But when you look at those 18 races, we've had 15 different winners in those 18 races. In fact, the last 8 races, we've had 7 different winners, including this guy right here that won the fall race, Kurt Busch. It seems like it's a little unpredictable as to who might go to victory lane going into the weekend.
Well, and that's why track president Eddie Gossage expects 175,000 people here on Sunday. Dick?
Kurt Busch won here in November, the last time Sprint Cups were at this facility. He has a car that they call Charger, which has nothing to do with his use of credit cards. It has everything to do with the fact that when the team wins a race, they name the car. This is the car that won in Atlanta earlier this year. It is a Dodge Charger, which is why they've called it Charger. And the last time he was out on the racetrack, Kurt described the car as being lethargic. And the crew asked him, please spell lethargic. He got a Q in there by the 4th letter. The crew said, bring it in, we'll work on it.
Yeah, right now
That's
he's
good.
run 12 laps, and Kurt's 26th quickest on the chart.
Monday night, Fast Track to Fame, Texas style, hosted by Michael Waltrip, and this week, Chris Devoda. The talent competition so wild it could only happen here. Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, only on Speed. See who's on the Fast Track to Fame from Texas.
Watched the little old Phoenix show. Good show. It really was a good show. The bagpiper did not win, though. He made it to the finals, but he did not win.
It's hard to build a Vegas show.
Hammond chose the girl over the bagpiper.
Well, now there's a surprise.
Of course he did.
Shock and awe. Terry Cook had a good run last week. They ran the whole race at Phoenix and carrying the autism awareness colors. April is Autism Awareness Month. AutismSpeaks.org is the organization trying to raise funds to find a cure. One of quite a number of worthwhile charity initiatives that you'll see on these cars in the month of April.
I think we made this observation a little bit earlier based on the nationwide cars. Good bit of drop off in these tires.
Now Terry Cook may become a NASCAR rule maker. He was the leader getting lined up for a restart last week and called into his team. He was on old tires and didn't want to be in front of a field of cars on new tires.
Yeah.
So as they were coming around for one to go, everybody's lined up. He pitted. NASCAR had to wave off the restart, reposition everybody because of lane choice up front, and getting everybody in the right row for the double file restart. So I'm not sure if they might take a look at it and say that's too cumbersome a process and go back to the old way of just moving everybody up in whatever row they're in. Don't know, but it did add a lap to the race.
That's what I would do, because that was complicated, man. I saw cars start wandering all over the racetrack.
Matt?
Mike, at the top of the show, we told you about Steve Letard's game plan for this practice session, and he was going to run a little bit longer than normal, but the car very good in the race trim, so good that they've just decided to go ahead and move on over to qualifying setup. When Steve and Jeff were talking back and forth, and Jeff said, well, what do you think? He says, yep, really good. I like what we're seeing on lap times. We're going to go ahead and swap it over now.
Wow, early in the game. AJ Allmendinger, that is, had a nice visit with AJ this morning. The ex-open wheeler who has really adjusted well to these big heavy stock cars. He was on the pole last week at Phoenix. Right now he's 31st on the practice chart.
I thought he was going to get a great finish last week. That last restart, he was up there in 5th spot, and I said, man, he's going to get him a top 10, which is something he said they'd really like to do, you know, turn their year around. Got shuffled around big time on that restart and ended up 15th, but he had a pretty good weekend, all things considered.
He told us the car in front of him spun his tires, and if he tried to make a move, it would have been big.
Yeah, well, it was Mark Martin, and he said, I didn't want to hit him because I thought, you know, that front straightaway is kind of treacherous.
Right.
I couldn't go around him because I can't beat him to the line, and by the time he checked up and did all the things he was supposed to do, other people took advantage of him.
It was a big week in Phoenix for Robbie Gordon.
Yeah, because he sat there and he ran in the top 15, top 20 all night long, ended up finishing 14th. The last 2 races, he's been outside the top 35 in owner points. He moved into the top 35, and you can see it by 7 points over the 34 car of Travis Kvapil. So now Robbie Gordon knows he's going to race on Sunday. Travis Kvapil's going to have to qualify on time.
About 45 minutes into this session, Dale Earnhardt Jr. still quickest over Clint Boyer and David Rudiman. Speed's coverage of Sprint Cup practice from Texas is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here. Let's get down to the garage area and meet last week's winner. Here's
Indeed, Ryan Newman. How much better is life now that you are a recent Sprint Cup winner than it was, say, 2 or 3 weeks ago?
Life's the same. It's just got a smile that goes along with it now. It's, you know, it was a great weekend last weekend for Tornadoes and for U.S. Army and Haas Automation and Chevrolet, everybody. You know, to get that first win at Stewart-Haas Racing was amazing. And come here to Texas, trying to figure out this rear spoiler and what we can do to make this car fast.
All right, well, we wish you well here at Texas. And before we leave, I want to clarify the Alan Gustafson situation. The phones are ringing at Hendrick Motorsports. Gustafson says he wants to stay at Hendrick for the rest of his career. That's kind of what we said, but stop calling Hendrick. He's not a free agent.
As long as yours doesn't ring, Doc, you'll be all right.
Yeah, I believe what we said was we doubt that either of those crew chiefs will reach free agency.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that they would. And, you know, we talked about this at the end of the broadcast. The first time in over 60-year history of NASCAR that the 39 number won a NASCAR Top Series race in the Sprint Cup or Winston Cup Series.
The only fellow I can remember who I think drove the 39 was Blackie Wangler from Minnesota.
Yeah, I said I couldn't remember anybody that drove it, but Blackie did drive it. Certainly, Friday Hassler was a guy that I knew, and from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
You know, we're looking at Joey Logano here, and right now, Joey is 17th quickest, had another great finish, another great run at Phoenix last week, finished 10th. We're 7 races into this season, and he has amassed 352 more points this year than after 7 races last year. Darrell, that's almost 50 points a race better than a year ago, but I don't know that anyone's really surprised about that.
Not really, Larry, but you're right. This kid, we know he's good. We know he's got talent, and we know that guy right there is a championship-winning crew chief. They're maturing. They're bringing Joey along just fine. I like the process he's making, the progress he's making. He's got the right guy on the pit box to get him that experience, confidence he needs. They're doing a nice job.
And Joe Gibbs has made a believer out of just about everybody when he tabbed Logano to drive that car, and he said, don't worry. He says if he has the talent, and we think he does, we'll get him the experience.
Yeah.
And they have.
And the Home Depot people were very patient at the beginning of last year, and now they're reaping the reward for the dividends paid.
And he has a win in his rookie season, and whoever would have thought that was possible in today's day and age, as many competitive cars as there are.
Yeah, last year, I mean, you think about it, we had 3 first-time winners last year, him and Keselowski and David Rudiman, and all 3 of those guys, it was just a big surprise that, you know, with the quality of the competition, the number of guys that have won races, they were able to slip in there and get them a win.
So Elliott Sadler, who is 39th on the board, and Brian Vickers 34th.
Now, Brian Vickers is the track record holder here at Texas Motor Speedway. He did it back in November of 2006. How about around a 1.5 mile racetrack? 27.518, average 196 miles an hour plus.
Makes your head hurt just thinking about it, doesn't it?
That if that's not wide open, it's pretty darn close to it.
That's right in there with that 198 at Atlanta.
Yeah.
I was there for that, and I was there to watch Brian, and I'm glad they're in the car and I'm up here.
One change up toward the top of the board. There's David Rudiman there at 3rd, which he turned on his 23rd and final lap on the racetrack so far. This spring, the Friday night lights in Texas won't be there. They'll be at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Wrong drag strip. Sorry. Friday night drags open Friday, April 30th. For tickets and information, visit atlantamotorspeedway.com.
I didn't know there was a drag strip here in Texas.
I'm looking up. I see it.
There's Eddie Gossage in the blue shirt, and if he has his way, there probably will be.
I see a dirt track.
Had breakfast with Eddie this morning. He's looking well and looking forward to having a big crowd here on Sunday.
He's just a good guy, but he is a great track promoter. There's no question.
Now that's Eddie Jarvis he's talking with, and runs interference for Tony Stewart, and takes care of a lot of Tony's business affairs on the road.
Call him the Godfather.
Eddie's done an awful lot to make this place not only the showplace of the sport, but also very prominent in the minds of sports fans in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that already had NFL and Major League Football and hockey and basketball and you name it when this track opened.
You know, Mike, you mentioned a while ago that Johnny Sauter is now in the 36 car. I think one thing we do need to clear up, Tommy Baldwin made this announcement this week, and right now it's only for here and Talladega Super Speedway next week, because what you have to remember, Johnny runs the full NASCAR Camping World Truck Series schedule. Tommy hopes to announce a permanent driver for this 36 car within the next 2 to 3 weeks before Johnny has to go back to the Truck Series, because the Truck Series schedule is going to get pretty thick here in a few weeks.
David Gilliland running the 37, the Taco Bell car.
Under a little extra.
22nd, which is a pretty good shot. Right now, he's 4th among the Go-Go homers.
Yeah, he's under a little extra pressure this week. Got to make the race on time.
Actually, he's locked in.
He's locked in.
It's his teammate Travis Quapple.
I'm sorry, you are correct.
Yep.
Looking at Joe Nemechek, who is a Go-Go homer, 17th. Crosby Roofing is Joe's sponsor this week on the Cup car.
Joe finds him a sponsor just about. Last week he had PetSmart on the car, and got a little something on there this weekend.
Yep, they work at it. He's found a marketing firm that's helping develop partner relationships for that race team, and they're doing a good job.
And Joe qualifies for about every race. Joe did miss this race a year ago, but for the most part, when they dropped the green flag, that 87 car is in the field. He's qualified for every race so far this year.
I think this might be a little qualifying effort right here. Saw him go out, and it looked like he was on a mission.
6th fastest right now.
That's what kind of mission he accomplishes.
Picked it up 1 spot. 29.04, 5th quickest.
But I think the indication, the minute he went across that start-finish line, you heard him shut that engine off, get a plug check, and don't get it too hot.
Indication to me was when he left pit road. He looked like he was trying to tear the car up because he tore out of the pits.
Jeff Burton is 11th fastest with a 29.15.
You know, we talked about all the different winners here. Jeff is one of 2 drivers that has more than 1 win here. He has 2 wins here. Carl Edwards has 3. In fact, Jeff got his first career win here at the inaugural Texas race back in 1997.
I think was that a qualifying run in 88? If it was, he didn't pick up any. He went a
94 to an
94.
89 is his fastest lap.
Yeah.
There's Dale Jr.
Pretty good effort.
Yeah, I backed the corner up a little bit. Still just not positive all the way to the center in 3.
Sounds like the car might be a little free getting down in there.
Let's check with Matt.
Mike, one driver who has climbed out of his car is Greg Biffle. So early on in this practice session, a lot of guys trying to find the nuances of the spoiler back on these cars. A NASCAR Sprint Cup car, not the COT. First weekend here in Texas with this. What were some of the things you were doing to try to learn?
Well, I ended up running around the 82, not by choice. He pulled out in front of us on, we're on 4-lap run on new tires, and you know, big wide open racetrack out there. There's lots of room for everybody, and but it gave me an opportunity to run behind him, and my car could cut down underneath him. So, you know, that was their first run too. So don't know how their car was, but it looks like, you know, you get up behind a guy, it's going to make him loose like the old days. So we're real excited about how this spoiler is going to act here in Texas.
The new tire package here this weekend, how different than last fall?
You know, it doesn't seem like it's a lot different at this point, but, you know, we only have 20 laps on these tires. Nationwide cars seemed, you know, fairly standard, so we're seeing a lot of right front shoulder temp, but we don't know if that's his heat or if it's actually going to be trouble later on.
All right, thanks, Greg.
Thanks.
So what I picked up on that interview, that was not by design with Scott Speed, but you know what? He accomplished 2 things.
Right.
He got Scott Speed's attention, and he learned what his race car would do tucked up behind someone.
3 things, and he blew off a little steam in the process.
He feels better.
Here's a little team I think you might keep an eye on this weekend, based on their Atlanta performance. Coming in here, it looks like they could have a little something going.
Well, Kurt Busch won the race here in November, and the 18 car of Kyle Busch dominated, but had to pit for fuel late in the race.
One thing I'll say, when you're talking about the tires, if you just look at the racetrack like we do every time we get to a track that hadn't been used for a while, you'll notice it's pretty white. It's starting to pick up a little color down in the bottom of the groove there where everybody's running. Tire wear always improves as the weekend goes along, and by Sunday, a lot of times issues you have through practice and qualifying and all go away because of the added rubber to the racetrack.
The color Carl Edwards wants to see is green. Yes, it's the color of money, but So his sponsor Scott's. I guess I understand. I'm not sure I do. We spend all this time, effort, and money fertilizing the grass and keeping the weeds out and watering it, so we can complain about how much time we have to spend mowing it. I guess that's a good thing.
Doesn't make sense, though, does it?
Does to the Scots people.
You're right.
They
You're
do a
right.
good job with it. Sprint brings you an inside look at what's happening now inside the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. Fastest speed, Clint Boyer on his 14th lap, 187.98 miles per hour. 4 more stats, in-car audio, and live race radio. Check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile at sprint.com/speed.
We've had a little change up there in the top 5. Look at that. We got Boyer on top. Still got Earnhardt up there, but Hamlin and Joe Nemechek we were talking about earlier, he jumped up there. Mike Bliss in the 09. Guys are getting on it.
It's almost a whole, except for Earnhardt, it's a whole new top 5.
Yep, Brad Keselowski has found his way into the top 10.
Here's what I think that is happening is we're 2/3 of the way through this practice session. We don't have a lot of cars on the track. I think now a lot of our top 35, Dick Berggren, is swapping over to qualifying trim, like maybe the guy you're with.
Yeah, absolutely. The guy I'm with is Mark Martin, and after just 9 laps of practice earlier in this session, Mark declared the car so good he couldn't imagine they could make it better. So they did swap over to qualifying trim, including much smaller front brake rotors. But Mark said the car was just a bit too loose. You'll recall it was just a little bit too tight. He wanted to loosen up a little bit more. In qualifying trim, it's just a little bit too loose. So they've got it up on the scales. They're going to make some adjustments to the car, and Mark will go back out again and see what he can do about putting the car on the front of the field for Sunday's race. But I'll tell you what, guys, every time we hear Mark Martin say in a practice session that he's got a really good car, you don't even need to look where he is in this serial order of things. You know he's going to be a threat on race day.
Right, he's 13th right now. Larry, smaller front brake rotors.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, this is really and truly, if you factor in the carburetor restrictor plate at Daytona and Talladega, this is the fastest racetrack that we come to. Darrell talked about it at the top of the show. Everything you can do to get the most out of straightaway speed, the power, and putting small front brake rotors on to qualify is less rotating weight, less unsprung weight on those front wheels. So anything you can do for speed, even at a 1.5-mile racetrack, is important today.
It's also less brake. And so if you should touch the brakes, you got those big massive calipers and brakes on there like they will probably race. You lay your foot on those babies, it'll slow that car down more than you realize. Get a little smaller package, you might push on that pedal as hard as you want, but sometime with that small package, you don't slow down much.
All right, we just saw Martin Truex jump up to 8th from deep in the, I think he was below 20. I think he was about 23rd, and he jumped to 8th. Here is Sam Hornish, who is currently 26th. And Dale Jr. is 2nd on the board.
This is probably another practice qualifying run for this 88 car. His fast lap, 28.89. The Boyer's 28.72. 28.93. So his best lap is an 89. In fact, Sam Hornish Jr. just jumped up the 2nd spot in front of Dale Jr. The last time out,
Felt better, I guess.
Whoops.
Earnhardt ran a 94. That time a 93. Now Earnhardt's 4th.
Yeah, Rudiman just jumped up there.
It'll be hard to keep up with the score and monitor now because everybody's getting on those practice qualifying.
Yeah, this is knockout practice.
Yeah, Rudy Tootie just ripped off an 85.
One thing I noticed is, you know, a year or so ago we came here. This is where we first noticed how yawed out some of the teams had the cars with the rear end housings that they were running. I have not noticed anybody with their car yawed out today. And one of the things that some of the guys are saying with the way the spoiler hangs over the outside edge of the car, that it wasn't a good idea to yaw the car out. It slowed it down too much.
Now Newman just went from 40th to 4th with that practice qualifying run. And just to expand on what Darrell talking a little bit about, yawed out means it actually is like a helicopter flies. You would see the right rear of the car outboard of the right front. Darrell was talking about side force earlier. That's the reason they do that, is because it really helps the side force with the flat sides down the right side of this car.
Kevin Harvick jumps to 6th, and so much of the top 10 changes again as this practice passes the 1 hour mark. Watch the best of NASCAR on Speed shows online on demand. Go to the video section of speedtv.com or NASCAR.com each weekend, and you'll find interviews, highlights, race recaps from your favorite speed programs like Trackside, Race Day, Victory Lane, and more. David Stremme is on the better get going or gonna go home list.
He moved up. He's up to 29th.
He is, Darrell. He is still among the bottom 3 right now on practice speeds of the go homers.
And this was a team that did not qualify at Phoenix last week as well with this 26 car.
Right now, the 3 slowest of those are Stremme, Terry Cook, and Johnny Sauter.
Brian Vickers was not filling out his lunch order. He was dissecting the racetrack on his, looked like his iPad maybe.
Again, going back to the Phoenix race, we did attempt to talk to Kyle Busch after the race. Kyle was not speaking to any reporters and immediately left the racetrack after climbing out of the car and changing. So we were unable to speak with him. And, you know, he's often been criticized for doing so and blowing off reporters. But I've got to say, in my opinion, after you have a race snatched out of your grasp that late, maybe that was the right thing for him to do rather than say something he'd regret. However, right now he is fastest in this practice.
He didn't regret that lap, I can tell you that.
Kyle was one of 3 drivers who led over 100 laps, Jimmy Johnson and Juan Montoya being the others.
Look at this.
And here they all come on the final caution. 4 tires they thought would be the right call.
You know,
however, too many cars in front of them took 2.
The reason they took 4 is when they heard a 48 was taking 4. That must be the right call.
Well, as Dave Rogers said on the radio, they had made the decision to go for 4 when they overheard. Everybody scans everybody. When they heard the 48 was also getting 4, that confirmed his decision because that was the car he felt he had to beat.
And see, I think, in my opinion, that's the difference in Chad Knaus and almost every other crew chief down in that garage area. Chad Knaus, I'm sure he listens to other crew chiefs. We know he scans. We know he watches other people close. But Chad Knaus makes decision based on what his car needs and where his car is running, not what other people are doing. And I just think people's got caught up in monkey see, monkey do.
I'm saying, in Dave's case, he had made the decision, but he felt better when he heard the 48 was doing the same thing.
You take that and turn it around. Tony Gibson and Ryan Newman were discussing what to do. What do you want? What do you think we should do? Gibson asked Ryan. Ryan said, I don't know. I'm going to leave it up to you. He said, well, when I heard that, he said, I'm going for 2.
Okay. Kurt Busch jumps up to 3rd as we go to Matt.
And the 21 of Bill Elliott backing out of his garage stall. He's actually one of 2 cars that's parked outside the garage because this team not running all the races, only running 13. Bill is very pleased with the race car. He says it does get a little unsettled over the bumps. One bump, the car reacts one way. Another bump, the car reacts another. They made 1 slight change, but heading back out. But this team pretty pleased. Remember, we've talked so many times, they've backed up their schedule to try to concentrate on select races, and it's really proven to be a great strategy in the past. Next year, they're hoping to be back full time.
The shaker machine helps them work out problems like that. You can spend time on that shaker machine, you get through those bumps.
Bill Elliott will race on Sunday, either on time or by champion's provision. We'll find out later today. Hour and 13 minutes into this session, and 3 of the top 5 have changed. Carl Edwards up to 2nd, Greg Biffle to 3rd, Tony Stewart to 4th quickest. All 4 makes represented in the top 5.
Yeah, the 28.55. I mean, Larry, we were talking earlier that qualified here last November at a 28.25 and a 28.34 for this race last year. So I think we're going to get below that 28.25 myself. I believe you'll see a 190-mile-an-hour average lap around here this evening when they get ready to.
And I guess we'll have to wonder how much of that is the new rear spoiler, how much of that is the new tire package, how much of it is just the development that's done year to year.
I think it's certainly the tires and the spoiler, I think, would be the key to the speed.
Yeah, because the spoiler we know hurts the straightaway speed, but it may be helping the corner speed, so the net out of it may be quicker, but I definitely think this tire package is much, much quicker.
I do
too.
too.
And probably at this track, at this 1.5 miles, the ratio of corner speed to straightaway is about 1-to-1.
Yeah, well, but there's no straightaway. I mean, you look at that little short back straightaway, you're turning through the front here. So, you know, if I'm going to have it one way or another, give me one that'll get through the corner.
You'll make that straightaway speed faster.
I don't lose many races down the straightaway.
Mark Martin 14th after that run. Bill Elliott just jumped to 15th.
What makes you fast here is when you can sail off the corner right there where he is now, get back in it wide open and never let up. That's what makes you fast. Also makes you loose.
Hornish is 21st right now.
I think this is the start of another practice qualifying run. You know, he had jumped right up into the top 5 not that many laps ago. And as you said, 21st quickest in his 77 car. Qualified 3rd at Phoenix last week, which was a career best start for the 77 car in Hornish.
And early in the race, I mean, half or better of that race, he stayed up near the front all night long.
Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and Marcus Ambrose have jumped into the top 10.
See what that lap brought him.
10th.
Jumped up to 10th quickest. We know Sam doesn't mind running fast around this place. He actually has 3 IndyCar wins here at Texas Motor Speedway. So that puts 2 of the Penske Dodges up in the top 10. Kurt Busch is 6th. Sam Hornish is 10th. And Brad Keselowski, who stayed in the top 10 for quite a while, he's all the way back down to 33rd quickest right now.
You ever seen an IndyCar race here?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I was here for the race when Ari and AJ had it out in Victory Lane.
You know, only one word I can think of: insane.
Oh, the speeds were just incredible. Couldn't believe how fast those cars were
Well,
going
I can't even watch it because those cars running side by side are just, yeah, I mean, those are open wheel cars running side by side.
Yeah.
You know what happens if they touch wheels.
That's right.
And they get sometimes 2 and 3 wide running side by side around this joint.
It was a race where there was a scoring mistake, and I believe it was AJ was celebrating a victory lane. Ari came in and said, hey, we won the race. And
Probably,
a good bit of pushing and shoving broke out.
Probably shouldn't have said that to AJ
Well,
at that time.
It was, however, true.
That's why you shouldn't have told AJ. Well, you better get away from around here.
Denny Hamlin on his out lap. He's 32nd right now. He's just begun. This is his timed lap.
Yeah, this ought to be a pretty good one, I think.
You know, we were talking about him a while ago, and I thought it was very interesting what he actually said in the media center after the race, because we were questioning once the car went 2 laps down with electrical problems. He jumps up to 11th quickest. Why he didn't go ahead and get out and give that leg a break? And he said, you know what? He thought about it. He thought about it long and hard, but he felt like that his team was giving 100%. They were patient. They stood behind him, and he wanted to make sure that he didn't let them down by climbing out of that race car.
Good point.
The most comfortable place you can be as a driver is in that race car, in the seat.
And Casey Mears is here to stand by for Denny if needed again this week. Speed's presentation of Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by Napa. Napa know-how.
Love that commercial, that song. I didn't know.
That Martin Truex Jr.
Yeah, I didn't know Martin could sing.
Well,
that just blew me away.
None of us knew.
I didn't know that mechanic could either.
Dale Jr. was at the top of the board. Now he's 29th after everybody's made their mock
Is that
laps.
not great? Just looking at that, he had to get all the way over on the other side.
Well, here's what's got to be frustrating for them. They keep going out and repeating their lap time. He's running 89. He ran a 34. He ran a 35 or a 94 to 95, and he just ran a 90. He's run 4 practice qualifying runs within a half of a tenth. But the problem is now that 28.89 is 29th quickest versus like Boyer's 28.51. They repeat every run. They're just not getting any faster.
Good news for Ford fans. Casey Kane has jumped up to 9th. He'd been down around the 40s in this practice. And Kane is usually good on the mile-and-a-halfs.
Now, Casey is the only driver to win a Texas race from the pole. He did it back in April of 2006.
Well, there's a time we came
Montoya to
halves.
4th from 27th to 4th with that lap.
Yeah, there was a time we came these mile-and-a-halves. You just about knew that 9 car was going to win the thing, win the pole and the race.
Yes, sir.
It's really good in 1 and 2. I just got tired in 3 and 4 in the middle. Went in, tried to roll pretty fast, and it just needs to be a tad freer than that.
You hear that?
Yeah.
Because you have to remember to breathe. When you're going this fast around a little racetrack like this, you got to remember to breathe.
Here's Matt.
And Mike, they're putting the 17 car, Matt Kenseth, back up on the scales. Pretty much his one complaint during his practice session, just needs to have the car turn better. Also needs to have a little more grip in the back, and it needs to feel more secure. But last night, egos, bragging rights all on the line, and Matt Kenseth is already a champion winner here at Texas this weekend. Eddie Gossage, who we were talking about earlier, one of the greatest promoters ever, had Fandango, a great event for the fans here at the Speedway last night. He had office chair races, office chairs with fire extinguishers attached, and Kenseth smoked everyone in the competition, no pun intended.
That's some interesting racing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With fire extinguishers.
We raced outhouses one time. That was even more interesting. But office chairs, I'm not sure. That was back in the days when, you know, drivers would just go for anything. School bus racing.
Remember a horse race.
Yeah.
Sulky
race.
at Dover.
Yeah.
Now, this is a practice qualifying run for Jimmy Johnson. He's 13th quickest right now. A guy that just really jumped up from 17th to 6th just a second ago, Jeff Burton, in that 31 car at a 28.60.
Around here now, hustle it around.
Boy, Scott Speed, the third fastest with the lap he just completed.
Now, Jimmy Johnson, he has kind of the same syndrome that the 88 car has. His fast lap is a 28.73. That lap was a 28.75. Repeating runs, but just not getting any faster.
And here is Reed Sorensen in a Dollar General Toyota, who is going to have to time his way in.
I heard Chad tell Jimmy to hustle it around. I thought he meant on the racetrack. I believe he means hustle back in the pits and let's get one more run in.
And that's about what they'll have time for, with about 7 or 8 minutes to go in this practice session.
Sorensen jumped up a bit. Where'd he end up, Larry?
He's 34th quickest, which as far as the go or go homers would put him in pretty good shape. The fastest go or go homer, Mike, was Max Pappas in that 13 right now. He's 14th quickest, and I was telling you the story during commercial break. Of course, his crew chief is my little NASCAR performance buddy, Booty Barker. Booty says Max's biggest problem qualifying at all 22 racetracks is overdriving the entrance of the corner. If there's a track you can get by with that, if the car will take it, it's Texas Motor Speedway.
Allmendinger jumped up to 7th, Larry. Mike, pretty good run for him just then.
Yep, coming off the pole last week, as Jeff Gordon is now on his timed lap.
Yeah, Boyer's quickest at a 28.51, and I'm just going to go back to Joe Nemechek is 39th at a 29.01. So a half a second separating 39 race cars on a 1.5 mile track.
I really believe this may be the tightest I've seen yet, but in those first 25 or 30 cars, particularly when you think, as you said, Dale Jr. here's a 28.52. Junior's over here to 28.89, all the way in 32nd spot.
Jeff Gordon jumps up to 11th with that run. Tony Stewart is fastest. A lot of activity in these final minutes of practice. Brad Keselowski jumps up to 7th, Jamie Mack to 8th. Kaboom, Dale Jr. 2nd place. The list will have to change because Jr. just ran a 28.48.
That's what they've been working on, Larry. Get those consistent laps in, which were pretty fast.
Yeah.
Now they taped him up, aired him up, and sent him out.
Well,
Ambrose 23rd.
Last time we were at a track like this, Dale Earnhardt Jr. sat on the pole back at Atlanta a month or so ago.
Casey Kane 15th.
I can tell you, just standing up here watching these cars at this up top grandstand like we are, they are bad fast. They are flying through these corners.
Joe Nemechek, one of those that has to qualify on time on his timed lap. Here's Brian Vickers, who is 20th right now.
Yeah, with about 2.5 minutes to go, the guys that would be in trouble would be Michael McDowell, Terry Cook, Johnny Sauter. But Dick, a guy that sat on the front row last week at Phoenix, pretty quick in this practice.
Yeah, he sure is. Scott Speed, who last year failed to qualify for this race, and I asked his crew chief, Jimmy Elledge, what the difference is between last year and this year, and he said everything. But a big difference is Speed knows more now what he needs in the car and is able to tell the crew so they can dial him in.
Thanks, Dick. Greg Biffle now 7th. Tony Stewart, Dale Jr., Clint Boyer, Kyle Busch, Scott Speed, Carl Edwards, and Greg Biffle. Rest of the top 10, Keselowski, McMurray, and Montoya. Hamlin now 15th.
You know, you mentioned Greg Biffle in that 16 car, 7th quickest. No, Jeff Gordon won this race. Certainly don't want to take anything away from him from that win a year ago, but the car to beat a year ago was Greg Biffle. Unfortunately, problems on pit road all day long, and all he could get back to was 3rd.
But Kyle Busch really was the guy that should have won this race, or could have won this race if he hadn't run out of
the fall race.
The fall race. Yeah.
So when we get to knockout qualifying, it'll be 11 drivers looking for 8 spots at the back of the field, or somewhere in the field, that is. And 3 will go home. You'll see that this afternoon on Speed. Greg Biffle knocks Tony Stewart off the top spot with a 28:30.
Faster than they were here in April a year ago.
Yeah, and real close to what they ran in November. So you know, they may get down in those 28 O's.
I think
when
they will.
we get qualifying later on today.
Bet you they do.
Biffle with a 30, Stewart a 39, Earnhardt a 48. They are the 3 drivers under 28 and a half. Ryan Newman making a final run here.
Johnson just jumped up to 5th.
Yep.
So we got Biffle, Stewart, Earnhardt, Boyer, and Johnson top 5. Kyle, Speed, Edwards, Keselowski, and McMurray in the next 5.
David Reagan moves into the top 15. Joey Logano 18th. Hornish 22nd.
Boy, David Reagan, they've run some laps in this practice, 41 laps total.
He just jumped up to 16th, Larry, so gaining on it.
A lot of action right at the end of the session, and you will see Sprint Cup qualifying later today, live right here on Speed. We'll see you then.